What's up guys, DuArktik here with another Marvel Strike Force video, and in this video we're going to talk about Xtreme X-Men and how you can build this team to Xtreme without breaking the bank. We're going to take a look at the best T4s, ISO weight, and the position of these characters, which are the game modes where they're going to shine, and if this is going to be a team that you should invest in. Spoiler alert, yes, you should definitely invest on them, as they can make multiple teams for multiple game modes. You can make 3 to 4 teams out of these characters for Blitz. You can use 2 teams with these characters in Cosmic Crucible. You can also make 2 teams with these characters in Alliance Wars. So this is definitely a team that is going to provide a lot of value for your Marvel Strike Force experience. And with the rumors that we are going to get a major rework in the future, well, that means that these characters will have even more value. But we're gonna break down all this information in this video, and as always, if you like the information on these videos, make sure you share these videos with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and make sure you smash that like button like a boss. Okay, so who's an absolute boss? Of course, is the Xtreme X-Men with Forge, Nightcrawler, Sunspot, Gambit, and Cyclops. Some of these characters have more value than others, which is going to be Forge, Nightcrawler, and Gambit, but Sunspot and Cyclops, they have mid-range value on specific situations, which we'll talk about. So we're gonna break down all the information that we have on my infographic. You can find these infographics on my Discord. Link is in the description of the videos. And we have the full breakdown of the T4s, which you can find right here with orange color. That means they're good in all game modes. And with a green color, it means that you have the most value in raids. Then now I give a suggestion for ISO weight, whether you're using these characters on defense or whether you're using these characters on offense, because a lot of times people ask me which character should I use on defense, and this is important because the AI plays the game on a different way than we play. So that's why the ISO weight on defense is different from the ISO weight on offense, because the AI doesn't know for sure which character has vulnerability, and that's why the striker ISO weight, for example, on defense is not as good as the Raider ISO weight. Then we also have the red star recommendations. We have the type of gear that we have, position of the team, and the game mode. So we're going to break down all this information to make sure you are well informed when you are building these characters. Okay, so let's take a look at the T4s, which is usually where we have the biggest investment, as T4s are still quite rare, quite scarce in the Marvel Strike Force. So we're gonna start off with the Forge, and the Forge on his basic is going to apply the flex and regeneration with his basic attack, and this goes from 4 characters to all characters. Right now this is not super important as you only have 5 characters, right? So this is definitely a T4 that you could skip. Then we have the special. The special is quite nice, but it really depends on the situation. If you're using Forge on offense, where you know for sure that you're gonna have teams that will apply heal block to you, this is a nice way of T4. But if you are just gonna throw him on defense, then it's okay T4. It's not a major priority for your character. One T4 that is major priority for sure is going to be the ultimate. And this is going to be for raids, as you're going to get evade safeguard for your all Xtreme X-Men, and this is crucial when you're facing characters like Morgan Le Fay or characters like Beta Ray Bill that can clear away all the positive effects from your team. And finally, we have the passive from Forge. On spawn, apply defense up to self and all X-Men allies. And this is something that might have value in the future. Right now is not super important, but when we have this expansion of the X-Men characters and their reworks and their value, this might come more into play, as right now with Cyclops we already have the flex and defense ups, so we have a little bit of overlapping that we could get more benefit of in the near future. So for Forge, the best T4 is definitely the ultimate for raids. The other ones are nice to have, but definitely not game breaking by any means. Okay, now let's talk about Nightcrawler, since we are talking about game breaking, and this guy is quite insane. We're gonna start off with his basic. In raids, if you have 3 or more X-Men allies, is going to apply ability block to the primary target on the last attack. Now, this T4 is okay. Nightcrawler has a problem with focus, and this ability block very rarely lands. So, I don't know, it's up to you to decide if you want to risk it or not. If you have a small Nightcrawler, this is definitely a T4 that I would skip for sure, as most of the times it will not land, so it becomes very unreliable. Then we have the special. The special is going to apply 2 evades to the most injured allies, and these allies do not have to be Extreme X-Men. So if you are using Nightcrawler with a Green Goblin or with Apocalypse, because maybe you are using him in Arena, these evades are going to be applied to those characters. And then we have additional rebound chain, and we also have additional piercing damage to the primary target and secondary targets. This rebound chain is very important, as when Nightcrawler crits, is going to give more speed bar to his allies. So the more characters you attack with this rebound chain, the better. And once again, that increases the value of this T4. So this is definitely a T4 that you should consider in all game modes. Now we have the ultimate of Nightcrawler, and this is going to prolong the positive effects of self and all allies. And this is huge. This is really huge because you can extend the safeguard, evades, death proofs, counters. You can extend all kinds of things, and it's a very, very powerful T4, especially in raids when you're using the full team. And for example, 4s give safeguard and evade to your team, and then you just extend it for multiple turns, and it goes all the way to 3. So it has a huge value. Finally, we have the passive of Nightcrawler, and on spawn is going to gain speed up out of nothing. So this is going to be huge. This is going to make your Nightcrawler to go first in most game modes, I think, except Cosmic Crucible, and that's going to make him very, very powerful, as he's going to be able to apply a stun early on to one of your enemies. On top of that, he also is going to gain 2 charges, and I don't remember what those charges do, never mind. But on top of that, we have that the speed bar of this character and the allies can only be reduced by slow. This means characters like Emma Frost will not be able to reduce the speed of your characters, and this is great, and this is still a rare ability that we find on characters like Apocalypse. So that really shows you that Nightcrawler is one great character with a lot of flexibility when it comes to theory crafting and using paired up together with other characters. Okay, now we're gonna take a look at Sunspot, and Sunspot is a very important character for raids. Outside of raids, not as important. So most of the T4s we're gonna talk about is in the context of raids. So with the basic, he's going to attack multiple targets. He applies bleed with the basic, and the higher is the ability, the more bleed damage he's going to do. But to be honest, he does so much damage that you could kind of skip this guy, and most people unfortunately are only going to be able to unlock him at 2 stars, so doing this T4 is not going to be worth it. So definitely skip this basic until you have like 5-5 or 6-6 on Sunspot. Then we have the special, which is going to prolong all negative effects on the enemies to primary target and adjacent targets. It will not extend ability block and stun outside of raids, and that makes its ability very, very lame. Supposedly you can extend trauma, but a trauma without stun, it's a trauma that is not doing anything. So it's okay ability, but it doesn't bring a lot of value outside of raids, because once again you cannot extend stuns and ability blocks. Okay, so now we have the ultimate of Sunspot, and once again we have more value in raids. He is going to generate ability energy for all X-Men allies, whether they are extreme or not. So even if you are using Rogue, Sunspot is still going to provide some value to your team. He's also going to do more damage, and this is going to be to all enemies, so you have a little bit more value out of this ability as well. Finally, we have the passive of Sunspot, And this ability does not say in raids, but it only works in raids, because on spawn, for every charge that he has, he's going to apply ability energy to himself and to Xtreme X-Men allies, but he only gains charges in raids, so it's not going to work outside of raids. And then on spawn, he applies offense down to all enemies, once again in raids. So those are decent T4s for raids, but outside of raids it has not a lot of value. And even in raids, depending on the size of your team, you could skip some of these T4s. So yeah, be careful with the investment on T4s on Sunspot. Let's talk about Cyclops, the leader of the team. And with this basic, the Cyclops is just doing damage. He can be a striker, but he does not apply bleeds. So it's up to you if you want to decide to have more single target damage or not. I did this T4. Unfortunately, this T4 is not piercing damage, so it will not scale throughout the time. So keep that in mind. This is a low value T4 for sure, the basic of Cyclops, even as a striker. Now with the special, we have that Cyclops is going to get new abilities, and this is going to give a defense up and regeneration to the 3 most injured allies or self, and then he's going to apply defense up and deflects to the 3 highest health Xtreme X-Men allies or self. So he has synergies with full X-Men and Xtreme X-Men, and the defense up is always welcome. And this is why I mentioned before that you could kind of skip the passive of Forge, because with Cyclops you're going to be able to apply defense up and deflects with the special, as the frequency where you can use this ability is quite often. It happens quite often. Now we have the ultimate of Cyclops, and this is a T4 that you kind of can skip depending on which use you are giving to him. So with the T4 is going to clear revive once from all enemies. So this is something that you can use in raids, but you can also not use in raids. It's not mandatory to use this ability. So if you want to save some T4s, it's it's okay option. It's not the best option, it's an okay option. And then apply slow for 2 turns, and this is where you actually get the most value of this ability, is making sure that you are applying slow for multiple turns to the enemies. This becomes very important as your team is extremely fast, and you really see the value of the slow for 2 turns on the enemies. The additional damage, once again, is not important, because he doesn't do piercing damage. He has the charge mechanic, and the charge mechanic on its own gives enough damage multiplier on this ability. Moving on, we have the passive of Cyclops, and this is only in raids. Xtreme X-Men will give him more charges to a maximum of 40, so this is going to increase his damage output in raids. And then you have more focus for himself and for Xtreme X-Men allies. And in raids, this is going to be a very important ability. As I mentioned before, some of the X-Men members like Nightcrawler really struggle when it comes to focus. So yeah, overall, Cyclops has some important T4s if you want to make your raid experience a little bit more stable, and if you want to get some additional value from his special in all game modes. And finally, we have Gambit. Gambit is also part of the Unlimited X-Men, and Gambit is a huge star on both of the teams. So first off, with his basic with the T4, he's just going to do more single target damage. But because the base damage of Gambit is so high, and because he also does piercing damage, the ability having higher damage is going to be always important. So you can delete those bigger tanky characters. Then we have the special, and when you use the special, you are going to apply speed up for 2 turns to self and all X-Men allies, whether they are unlimited or extreme. So this ability has a huge value, and it also applies bleed for 2 turns. Once again, because we are applying bleeds, because the ability can be spammed, and because the bleeds last for 2 turns, the higher you have the level of this ability, the more damage your bleeds are going to do. So multiple reasons why you should invest on this ability. And it also does piercing damage, so that's always welcome. Then we have the ultimate of Gambit, and the ultimate now flips 2 positive effects into negative effects on the enemies. It also applies Disrupt if you have more than 3 X-Men allies, and it does more piercing damage. So this is a massive burst damage and utility that you can use with Gambit. And especially if you have him together with Sunspot and you can use this ability turn 2, it becomes quite powerful. So this is definitely something that you should consider. And finally, we have the passive of Gambit. And when you use the T4 on this ability, Gambit is going to spawn with 20% additional speed bar, which will allow him to go a lot faster, which is very important in raids and in Cosmic Crucible, because as soon as Gambit goes, he's going to be able to apply that speed up to the team and make the team go a lot faster than the enemies, giving you an edge over whichever enemies you are facing. Then we also have that Gambit is going to get more 25% max health, and all X-Men allies 25% max health. Of course, this is a must-have T4. Any kind of T4s that give or more max health, or more max damage, or more max armor is definitely something that you should be on the lookout to increase the value of your team. And finally, we have that Gambit gains stealth for 2 turns instead of 1. And this is important because when Gambit is in stealth, he's going to have drain. And many times Gambit can go from 10% health to full health because of this drain. So the more time he spends in stealth, the better. So another reason to do this T4. So these are all the T4s that I recommend for the Xtreme X-Men and the reasons why. And once again, you can see the value of them here from 1 to 5, depending on the game mode and depending on their utility in game. Now, we're going to talk about the ISO weight for these characters. For Cyclops, if you're using him on defense, you should use him as a raider, because Cyclops on defense cannot target characters with vulnerability. So having him as a striker is not going to be a good option. So striker for offense, raider for defense. For Forge, once again, because we don't know if you are attacking characters with vulnerability or not, you can use him as a healer for defense, definitely a striker for offense. Then we have Gambit. You want to use Gambit as a raider on defense and on offense. Nightcrawler, the same thing. You want to use him as a raider on defense or offense, because he's attacking multiple characters all the time, spreading those vulnerabilities. And finally, Sunspot. You're going to have him as both striker and on defense and on offense, because we are assuming that all the other characters on defense will be raiders. So we need at least one character to be striker, and this should be the character that gives us the most value. This is also applicable, yes, I guess. This is also applicable in raids when you are simming. So it's not only defense, it's also when you sim in raids. And if you have your characters as raiders and you have just one character as a striker, there is a very high chance that the striker character will benefit of that. And the Forge and the Sunspot is the one that gets the charges that give energy to the team. So this is definitely a must-have, even if you are simming with your characters. So once again, for Sunspot, striker for both defense, simming, and also offense. In terms of red stars, we have a lot of value coming from multiple characters. So whether it is Cyclops, Forge, or the Nightcrawler and Gambit, these characters provide or some kind of healing, or some kind of drain, or some kind of barrier. And because of that, you want to invest or you want to have as many gold promos or diamonds on these characters as much as possible. Once again, the Cyclops is going to give more barriers, so more health, more stats, the better. Forge is going to give out of turn attacks, is going to provide healing and barrier, so the more stars the better. The same goes for Gambit. When he goes in stealth, more drain, more damage, the better. And Nightcrawler, he also goes below 30% health against barrier and a few other things. So once again, the more stars the better. The only character that gets less value of having diamonds and red stars on is going to be Sunspot, because all he does is just damage and applying some negative effects out every now and then, but no drain, no mechanics like that. So the red stars for him are going to be the least relevant. And finally, we have the position of the team. I like to have the characters with the highest survivability in the middle, together with the character that it can die, that does not really affect the outcome of the team. So you want to put Nightcrawler and Gambit in the middle, together with Sunspot. Sunspot is the character that you can afford to die. And then the characters you don't want to afford to die is definitely going to be Forge and Cyclops. In terms of the best game modes for these characters and for this team, As I mentioned before, you can use these 5 characters in different teams, and they are going to provide you 4 different blitz teams, which is quite remarkable. The value they provide to other teams is just amazing. In terms of arena, the only character that has value in arena is Nightcrawler. In terms of raids, they were designed for raids, so they are going to be amazing. In terms of Dark Dimension, these characters have huge value. I have made videos about these characters in Dark Dimension, and they absolutely obliterate Dark Dimension as a whole, whether it is as a full team or whether it is just a few members of the team. They have survivability, they have the mechanics that you need in raids, and they are just good once again on their own and as a whole. You can see right here which ones I would prioritize. So Nightcrawler first, then Gambit, then Forge and Cyclops, and finally Sunspot in terms of Dark Dimension priorities. In terms of Alliance Wars, this team is once again quite amazing. Whether using them on defense or on offense, they can provide a lot of value, and the same goes for Avengers Tower and Cosmic Crucible. We could even say that this Xtreme team changed the meta when it comes to these game modes, because as soon as they were deployed into the game, as soon as they become available to the players, right away, even at low stars, they drastically changed what everyone was using for defense and for offense. So there you go, guys. Those are my recommendations for the Xtreme X-Men team when it comes to T4s as a way to best game modes for them. Once again, you can find all of this information on my Discord. Link will be in the description of the video. And this is definitely a team that you are safe to invest in. Not only they provide huge value right now as a whole, but once again, you can mix and match these characters together with other X-Men characters, whether they are uncanny, astonishing, or unlimited, and the other teams will increase in value with the addition of these characters. So whether it is now or in the future, with more X-Men reworks, the Xtreme X-Men will definitely be a safe investment. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, and if you found the video helpful, make sure to share this video with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe for more Mouse Strike Force content, and I will catch you guys later.